Peter, thank you for joining Energy Live News and coping with Corona series of talks that we're doing with, business and leaders of businesses about the effects of the coronavirus pandemic. It is obvious that the effects are widespread and continue to heavily impact the energy sector. I would like to ask you about how has coronavirus impacted your business?
Yeah, hi, and nice to meet you. Yeah, I mean, look, it's a forever changing environment we find ourselves in on a daily, if not, well, a daily basis for sure. We've seen, there's been challenging times for sure for our client base, and there are kind of three real fundamental pieces that our clients are asking us to look at, and that's very much looking at their portfolio and looking at potential energy wastage on their portfolio. Obviously, buildings are now being vacated, production runs are changing, so looking at hibernating buildings, for instance, and making sure that there is as minimal wastage as possible, and recognizing potential cost savings in doing so. You know, within these challenging times, with clients being pushed from a cash point of view and really worried about their finances, they've got to be making sure that their portfolios are being run as effectively as they possibly can. And then obviously, once you've looked at the reduction in their energy consumption, it's very much about forecasting how that's impacting budgets. So we're seeing a lot of requests coming about traded positions, how much volume is being used, and what the impact of that is on their budgets, and wanting very much regular updates around budget positions and how reductions in cost through volume and also through commodity cost is impacting them. And then just finally, we're seeing over the last few weeks, very much about what is back to business going to be as well. So now we've got used to what is deemed to be a bit of a norm. It's what the back to business plan is as well.
Mm-hmm. So as I can understand, Mitie offers an energy consultancy service, on the businesses. How can a business with today's conditions can optimize its site during the coronavirus pandemic and lockdown? And what advice you can give to all these kind of businesses that they have closed their offices and probably they haven't taken any measure to save money or energy?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot businesses can do, and let's face facts. This is not something new. And our clients, we've been working with our clients for many years now about having flexibility of their portfolio and making sure that they're managing their portfolio as they can. For instance, bank holiday shutdowns are quite common now, and we see quite significant drops in usage over those periods of time. So that is just normal business as usual that you see going through. What we're now seeing is that buildings are being brought into what we call a hibernation state. It's not closing, but actually you're going to the next level on from what you would see from a bank holiday usage point of view. And we're seeing quite significant drops off. So if you're saying that actually from a normal business as usual, you would expect to see an 18 to 20% drop off for bank holidays, we're seeing an additional 10% come in, 10 to 15% drop off by putting buildings into hibernation, which is one step away from actually closing a building, which is a more significant step that you would make. But that's definitely where we're starting to see some big savings. And what clients are really looking to do is look at where they've got that connectivity. If they've got connectivity into their building management system, and they can make a very, very quick reaction and therefore instant savings. Now, obviously, not everybody's got that remote connectivity. We have hundreds of buildings that are linked to our remote operating centre in Bracknell. Not all of buildings will be connected directly into a remote operating centre, so therefore it'll be a bit more of a manual process where you send in a controls engineer to really look at that business management system and really kind of dial it down to a certain extent, and that's where you're starting to see some real savings. So the message to the clients is get control of your buildings, understand the rhythm of your buildings, and really understand what your building can go to within this period of time, because there are some significant savings out there.
Can you tell if there is any the most common mistake that businesses do during this process of evaluating how much waste they, how much energy they waste?
Yeah,
Which is the most, yeah.
Yeah, I think the biggest misconception is because people aren't in buildings, the building is not using energy.
Mm-hmm.
We see around about 7 to 8% of energy drop when buildings are vacated, just because people aren't in the buildings anymore. But actually, you need to do something to the building. The building will still run, it will still consume energy, the assets will still be there consuming energy. So you need to do something to your building management system. So you need to look at your temperature levels, you need to look at your running periods, you need to look at your set points. And that's when you start to get the real drop off in energy. And as I say, if you look at that in the right way, you control it in the right way, you look at your methodology that you have around your BMS strategy, you can be making a significant amount of savings, up to another additional 20 to 30% savings off the back of just a reduction in your capacity, in your occupancy within your buildings.
Have you estimated, and can you tell us how many businesses out of your clients have already rolled out site closure optimization measures with Mitie?
Yeah, so there's a lot of our larger clients that are looking at this now. There are some businesses that obviously can't do this because they are still in their sectors. They've still got operations that are running. But we're seeing the majority of clients are starting to look at this. We've seen some that have been quite aggressive in their strategy, and they're starting to see some really significant savings through, and they're recognizing it. But we're in contact with a lot of our clients and having these discussions. And as I say, sometimes it's not possible to really kind of drive buildings into hibernation stage, but the majority are very much considering what they can do on their portfolios.
How much it was the energy consumption that they saved through this measure that probably Mitie offered them?
So from a percentage point of view,
yeah.
So from a percentage point of view, over the if we're taking a building from BAU down into hibernation mode, and even taking into account the 7% that I'm talking around about the occupancy, we're seeing up to another 35% coming out of those buildings. You can take it to another level, as I said. You can close the building completely, but with the flexibility, and obviously we don't know how long COVID-19, this situation is going to continue for, and the lockdown is going to continue for. Mm-hmm. You need to have that flexibility. So our suggestions are to clients, and obviously we have to talk to clients quite a lot about what they're going to be doing post lockdown and bringing sites back on. And it's very important to recognise the fact that if you're in hibernation, you can bring a building back up probably between 24 and 36 hours. If you've got a building completely closed down, then you're starting to talk about weeks of bringing it back up because you're draining systems, etc. So that is the type of savings that we're seeing.
Yeah, fair enough. My last question: as Planet, the world obviously struggles with a huge economic and health crisis. How possible do you think is to see and maintain our determination to tackle the climate crisis?
Yes, it's interesting, isn't it? Because obviously we've seen, and I think the world all came out. We had Earth Day this week. Stating that obviously COVID-19 has had an impact from from our cities, and the pollution levels have dropped off significantly. But I think the big problem we've got here is that maybe people start to perceive that COVID-19, the lockdown situation we're having, is going to solve climate change. I think it's evident that that is not the case. There's a lot of work that needs to be brought in to make sure that we tackle climate change. And I think if we did a survey probably about 4 months ago now, talking about carbon reduction strategies, net zero strategies, and what came out of it was that there are a lot of strategies that are quite aggressive, with some very very aggressive zero carbon dates. 2030 is becoming the norm. 2025 we saw a lot of. Even our own Mitie a zero carbon target and Plan Zero is at 2025, and we've been very aggressive on that. But what evidence is that we're seeing is that people don't necessarily have a plan sitting around that to be able to and deliver those strategies. Now, my concern is that because of the lockdown, everyone's assumption is, well, I'm going to get to that target with my eyes closed. And I think it's very important to recognise the fact that, yes, it may well have given a short-term boost to be able to reduce carbon levels, but it will not solve the problem. There needs to be a strategy behind that, and corporate strategies to get to their zero carbon targets are very important. And obviously, from a global point of view, we also need to recognise that COVID-19, the lockdown, the global lockdown, isn't necessarily going to solve climate change in the short term. It's a short-term help, but there still needs to be well-planned strategies thought out by all corporates and obviously all governments as well. And I think that's a real key message that needs to be pushed out, and obviously one that was pushed out this week when we were talking around Earth Day.
Peter, thank you very much for your time. It was really nice talking to you.